Hello, and thank you all once again for tuning into my podcast, Outside the Box, where I aim to help people see that God is bigger than the boxes that we usually put Him in. Running a little bit late today because of technical difficulties, but I got it all straightened out. It was about 10 minutes or so that it put me behind. Um, so I'm here and ready to talk today about the meaning of life. So I usually come up with my ideas for my podcast just because of maybe discussions that I've had with people throughout the week or stuff that came to my mind when I was watching something or reading something or something like that. And so I don't remember specifically why this idea came to my mind, but I think it's something that we all should be asking ourselves, because everything that I talk about, like in the past with my different topics and stuff, boils down to why are we here? What are we doing here? Like, even if you want to talk about um, outside the box, is like helping people to see that God is bigger than the boxes that we usually put Him in. The boxes that we usually put Him in are determined by what we think life is about. So it's like the underlying thing for everything, and it's a subconscious thought that a lot of people have, that sometimes they're not fully aware of, because of course that's the meaning of subconscious. So but before I get into that today, and of course feel free to chime in with your questions and comments and things like that. But before I get into that, I just want to say you can catch my shows on Friday at 12:30 p.m. I am considering moving the time. I'll let you guys know ahead of time if that happens. What else? Oh, you can also follow me on social media. I'm on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, and I said YouTube already. So yeah, and Instagram. So I'm on those four platforms. You can follow me there, and please make sure you like, subscribe, follow me, share my content with other people that you think it might be useful for. But yeah, so that's me. For those of you who don't know, I am a certified life and relationship coach. I'm also a Christian author, a Bible teacher, and I also have my own another small business that I do with copywriting and graphic design and marketing. So anyway, but that's me, and so you know that like the perspectives that I talk from is not just coming from somebody sitting in their living room thinking and then turning on a computer, because people have the ability to do that nowadays, and you have a lot of people on social media who are just talking and talking. And it was one of the reasons why I kind of didn't want to do this, because I feel like it's so many people out in the world talking. Half of them are spreading nonsense, that I just did not want to be another voice among many, well, people who don't know what they're talking about. But God was pressing upon me like, hey, you need to do this. And that even though I don't know everything, of course, none of us do, that I do have some experience and things that I've learned that will be valuable to other people. And so, of course, to encourage and help people along the way. And it's my effort to make a small difference in this huge thing called life. And so here I am, doing my podcast. So back to this idea about the meaning of life. I guess one thing that I kind of want to um, highlight is that it's usually not. Most of the time, we're wrong in our assumptions about what we think life is about. So I'm really into philosophy. I love philosophy. And since the beginning, I think the person who gets the credit for kind of bringing philosophy on the scene, if I'm not mistaken, is Aristotle. Um, no, it wasn't Aristotle. It was another guy, but I can't remember his name right now. It'll come to me while I'm talking. So he was the first person that I guess you could say the father of philosophy. And since his time, and I'm gonna go ahead and look it up right now, because he started coming on the scene a long time ago. So this is not a new concept. I actually think philosophy is dying out a little bit compared to what it was. It was Socrates, yeah. And so Socrates was around, what it says here. The time frame was from 470 slash 469 BCE to 399 BCE. Like this was a long time ago. And BCE, if for those of you who don't know, is before Common Era, if I'm not mistaken. And so he's this is not new. And he was the first person to kind of come in and start challenging the way that a lot of people were not just saying they thought the meaning of life was, but how people were living their lives. And I do think philosophers have a very special mind, and I think they were put here specifically by God to usher along humanity. Because if you look in the book of Revelations with the Tower of Babel, when everybody was working together to achieve this one goal, it kind of shows that we can become very complacent in where we are and very narrow minded. So once we get settled into our routines and what our goals are and what we think the meaning of life is, of course, a lot of times a subconscious thing, we just kind of keep repeating those patterns because our brains are wired to repeat patterns and to recognize patterns. And so that's um, not unusual. So we get kind of grounded in these patterns. Um, and it takes something to push us out of that. And so sometimes, unfortunately, for a lot of people, it can be a traumatic event. It can be, the loss of something, which is still traumatic. It could be a life changing event like having a child, things like that. And so we typically need something to kind of push us out of our comfort zone. And so if God had allowed humanity to continue on in the way it was, where everybody was working together for a unified goal, everybody's focused on that goal, we would have achieved that and probably some other things, but at some point become very complacent, forgot about God completely. And I mean, I think about Wally. I don't know if you guys have seen the cartoon Wally, the Disney movie, where the humans left the earth and they were living in these ships and they didn't have to do anything. And everybody was fat and they were just shopping and buying. Like they were just so into like themselves that they didn't even realize the world that going on around them and their fellow human beings that was right next to them because they all have screens in front of their faces. And so we would have become something like that mentally. And so I think philosophers, and this is just my opinion, I think philosophers were put here by God to challenge our way of thinking, to bring us outside of our comfort zone, our bubbles, not to necessarily like, I don't want to say not change it because of course the ultimate goal is to change it, but to really to get us thinking, to get us becoming, to be more open to different ideas and perspectives because we, yeah. So Socrates was the first person to come on the scene and really start to challenge not only the way we live, but how we run our governmental system, how societies is set up. And I really like that type of thinking because I mean, my brain is definitely like that. And so and it's been several, many philosophers throughout the history that have come and not only challenge the way we live life and how we do things and how we understand things, but to kind of offer up their own idea about how we are actually supposed to live life as human beings. Um, some people have never even thought about that. They just wake up, do what they have to do every day, and just like robot, they continue on the pattern. But you have these people that's like, look at this world and look at our place in this world, and what are we doing here? Like, why? What is the correct way to actually live a life? And it boils down to what I talked about some few weeks ago: is avoiding pain. Because if it was not for pain, there nobody would even think about, okay, how do we live life? Because one of the main things about how we live life is avoiding pain and suffering. So they're trying to say the best way to go about doing that, to avoid pain and suffering, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, whatever, is to live this prescribed way. So some people think that we were supposed to live in the communities and some people shouldn't have personal property. We should live like this communal sense and only do things that serve the greatest good for the most number of people. That we should live seeking to fulfill our desires and pleasures. Like you have all these different philosophies about how we live life, and how we should. It basically boils down to happiness and productivity and things like that. And so, and so that's like again, an important question to ask yourself. But philosophers have a unique way of going about that. So what I kind of want to address today is personal. Because everybody has an idea of what they think life is about. A lot of the time it's not conscious, but you can tell what you think life is about based on how you live your life. So if your life revolves around a job or around your kids or around changing, making a difference in the world, or around taking advantage of people, or around criminal activity, that reveals what you think the meaning of life is about. Some people think life is about getting ahead, stuff like that. And so you can kind of look. So if it's good to sit back and ask yourself, okay, what do I think the meaning of life is about? Because anytime you intentionally think about something, you bring it from your subconscious mind where it works automatically without you having to think about it, just like our heart and bodily systems work automatically without us having to think about it. You have things in your subconscious mind that are the basis for how you think, and it just operates naturally without you having to think about it. But once you intentionally think about something, you bring it from your subconscious mind to your conscious mind, and that is where you can make changes to the way that you think. And so it's really, like, human beings are really complicated. So if you can imagine like a book on a shelf in a room, and you never touch it, but your whole philosophy of life is in there. You never touch it and you just live. But if you bring the book out, then you can make edits to it and things like that and say, I don't really like this idea. I don't know where I came up with it, because everything comes from somewhere, but I don't like it. I'm going to change it. And it kind of goes to like what the Bible says, that when I was young, I thought as a child, I spoke as a child, blah, blah, blah. But now that I'm older, I put away childish things. So you grow and you understand, that you have to kind of change and mature in your thinking. Of course, some people don't, but that's a whole different story. And so again, so once something is in your subconscious mind and you start thinking about it, okay, what do I think the meaning of life is? Then that is where you can bring it from your subconscious mind into your conscious mind and start to make changes to it, especially if it does not agree, if it doesn't line up with what you thought you believed that life was about. And so I know it sounds kind of weird, like if something's your subconscious mind and it doesn't agree with like your conscious thinking, you're like, well, both of them are my mind. How can they be different? But it can be. So you have to make sure that stuff is lining up. And then it kind of brings to mind about living in alignment and living out of alignment, which I might do a podcast about that. So anyway, so you bring it to your subconscious, your conscious mind, and you start to examine, how do you live your life? Because some people think family is important to them, but they spend no time with their families whatsoever. Some people think working is important to them, but then they complain about working every day. So you can kind of measure what you think life is about by bringing stuff from your subconscious mind to your conscious mind and just kind of examining it. That's one of the beautiful things about us as human beings. God gave us the power of reason and the ability to reason and make choices. And that is one of the ways that we are like God. We were made in his image. Animals and trees and plants and bugs don't have that ability, only us. So so you bring it from you start to examine what you think life is about. And then from there you can compare it to not only what you would like it to be about, but how does it compare to the word of God and what he says that life is about. So a lot of the times, even if you say life is about family, life is about working, life is about getting here, life is about making a difference and all that type of stuff, if you think that, is not necessarily bad, but you're wrong. Like, honestly, it is incorrect. And a lot of us have incorrect perceptions about what life is about. And so we go through life with these things and we get these results that we don't like, and when it doesn't match up with what we thought it should do, and blah, 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 blah. When the core of the problem is that our understanding of what life is about is wrong. Yeah. So, okay, so you say, well, if you saying that is wrong, then what's the right way? So the right way is, I need to take a drink. 1 second. The right way, the first thing about the right way is that, which makes a lot of our thinking wrong, is that it's not about us. We think it's about us. We put ourselves in the center. We shape everything that we do around what we want, and what we want to achieve. It doesn't necessarily have to be bad. Like, You could want good things, but we're not the center of life. God is. We were not made for ourselves. We were not made to please ourselves. We were not made to be unto ourselves. We were made by another being, and that other being determines what life is about for us. So, I mean, this can get really like complicated, but I guess the closest thing you can come to trying to understand it, because I think it's on a much more massive scale than we can understand. If you as a artist or a musician create something, if you make a movie, anything that you make or create, you're the person who understands why you made it and what you intended for that thing to do. Even if you say you're an inventor, now granted, stuff can be used for different things than what it was created for, but the inventor knows why they made the thing and what it's for. And so for us to be made by a being, like we're very, very complex. We're very, very complex. We have mind, will, emotions. We have, you know, a spirit. We live in a body that has all types of systems and stuff going on inside of it that we still don't understand a lot of. God knows why he put all those things there. He knows why he made it that way. He knows why he made us with the personality that we have, with the gifts that we have, with the inclination that we have. Like it's it's pretty deep if you think about it. And so for you to create this very complex being with the personality, with the mind, with the will, with gifts, with talents, with emotions, with abilities to, do things, and then this thing just lives life and act like you're not there, it's problematic. It's very problematic. Like, if you can imagine having a child and then the child just lives like you're not there, like, and you're taking care of the child. You're the child. You're the reason the child is breathing and eating every day, and the child just does not acknowledge your presence whatsoever. Would be kind of delusional, actually, but I'm just trying to give like some type of example. Um, it's very problematic, and the child, no matter how much they think they're going about life doing whatever they're going to be doing, they're missing a huge element when they're not connected to the creator, their parents, or the creator, the being that created them. So God knows what he made us for. And I don't care how much you navigate life on your own and you kind of stumble across these things and figure them out, you are missing a huge component of your identity when you do not acknowledge that you were made by another being and that they know why they made you. You have a purpose, and you don't align yourself with that. Like, and actually not doing that and just going about the way that you want to live life and how you want to do things is the very definition of being sinful and carnal, because we're trying to do things in our own way, with our own capabilities, in our own mind, and we're not acknowledging the being that created us at all. That is the very definition, or a very big part of what it means to live in sin. And so we need to understand that life is not about what we think it's about. Because now, if you go back to the being that created us, and we are all ants, for lack of a better word, in comparison to this being, what was his reason? What was his agenda? What did he have in mind when he made us? And I guarantee you, it was not a nice car. It was not a good credit score. It was not, all the other stuff that we come up with about what we think life is about. Some stuff we're right about, so I won't get it wrong, because some people think life is about family. It's not completely wrong, but it's not completely right either, because if you have family in the place of God, then you're still messing up. You still need to understand that your ability to connect and have great relationships with your family comes from God. You need to understand that the love that you have for your family comes from God. So you see, God still has to be at the top of the totem pole, because everything else filters down through to us through God. So again, so what did he have in mind when he made us then? And One of them, I can tell you, thing that he had in mind is relationship. He wanted beings to love. It's almost like us. Like we might get married, and then all of a sudden we feel the need to have a kid. Why? Because we want something to take care of. We want something to raise. We want something to teach. We want something to guide. God created us for that reason. And you hope that after you get done teaching and guiding and taking care of your child, they will grow up and love you, and you guys will have a relationship. Now, you do have a relationship when they're kids, but it's different when they mature. And it's the same thing with God. He understands that, like, we're in levels of maturity where we can't properly reciprocate the type of relationship he wants to have with us, but he gets us to the place where we can. And he works with us until we can get there. And so God wanted us for a relationship. I mean, he, again, we're made in the image of God. He made us to where we have a mind and we can think. And I mean, and there's plenty of examples in the Bible of him conversing with his prophets and stuff like that in a way you would not expect a God to do that. Like, especially like humans, we would just be like, oh, I'm in charge, I run the show, you do what I say. But but God, like, especially with like Moses and Abraham, like he talked to them, like, even at one point, like, so when God came and got the Jews out of Egypt, and then Moses went up to the mountain, and God was telling him, they cutting up down there, and I'm about to kill everybody, right? And people think God is like, the Old Testament is so extreme when it comes to God's reactions. But oh my goodness, like, have you dealt with any human beings? I totally understand. Like, I have 5 kids in the house. You think I have not felt like, and we're not talking about 5 kids. We're talking about nations of people, not just getting on your nerves, but being evil after you just delivered them from a very, very bad situation. And now come on, like, please stop acting like the human beings are feeling, oh, we shouldn't make people feel bad. Some people need to feel bad. I'll be honest with you. Some people need to feel bad. Some people need to be checked. Some people need to be taken out. But that's not my say. That's God's say. And the government say, like, if they want to, like, execute people. So God was like, they cutting up down there, and I'm about to kill everybody. And Moses was like, hey, don't do that. Like, everybody's going to look at you and say, you delivered all those people just to kill them. And God changed his mind because of the conversation that he had with Moses. Like, yeah. So you would not expect a God to do that. Even Abraham, when God was about to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, and Abraham was like trying to convince God, hey, God, like, don't do that. Like, you mean to tell me you? And God was like, okay, fine. If I found one righteous person, then I won't do it. So God wants a relationship with the being that can, I don't want to say be on his level, because we can never be on his level, but enough of his level to where we're not just puppets. Like, he wanted relationships with being who will constantly be aware of who he is, who we are, and actually, have ideas and thoughts, and we talk to him, and an exchange. He didn't want it to just be a one-sided thing where he just dictates and does everything. He wanted exchange between two people. So he had to give us a mind in order to do that, and he had to give us free will in order to do that. And so God created us for a relationship with him. And it's the most important thing. Like, and it's unfortunate because as we go about living our lives, it's a lot of times becomes the least important thing. And I get it, though, because I'm a human being too. When you're busy paying bills, and you're busy taking care of kids, and you're busy doing errands, and trying to fulfill your purpose and all, it's very easy for your relationship with God. I mean, it's very easy for your human relationships to fall by the wayside. So how much more relationship with a being you can't see, a being that does not fulfill your senses, your faculties, your sight, your smell, your sound. Like, a lot of times I have said, even to God, like, it would be much easier if I can just do a lunch date with Jesus. Like, hey, Jesus, I ain't talked to you in a while. Let's go out to eat. You know what I'm saying? But I can't do that. I mean, you spend time with God in a different way. But it would be easier if we had some physical, things to kind of, give him a hug, see him, smell him, eat lunch with him, like, hear him. We don't have those. You have to, any interaction you have with God and Jesus and Holy Spirit has to come through your spiritual faculty. And sometimes God will do things for you physically just to confirm things or whatever. But for the most part, the relationship between God is a spiritual one. And it's a different type of relationship than we're used to having, even though we have spiritual relationships with people in our lives, because anytime you love somebody, there's a spiritual connection between you and that person. Um, we also have our senses to kind of compensate for our a lack of understanding when it comes to spiritual things. But for God, we don't have that. We have to we really have to grow our spiritual senses in order to grow our relationship with God. And then we use that relationship with God. We lock arm with Him, arm in arm, walk through life with Him, and we use that relationship that we have with God to live life, to make decisions, to figure out what type of job we want, to figure out who we marry, to figure out how we raise our kids. And so we do it backwards. We have all of our ideas about what we think life is about, and then we bring God and try to squeeze him into, our thinking, our agenda, and sometimes exclude him from things that we don't want him to be a part of. But that is not how life works, and that is not the meaning of our existence. We were created to have a relationship with God. That's the main thing. And it's not just like worship him because he's God, even though he deserves it 100%, but it's actually to converse, to talk, to give him our ideas. And sometimes we can change God's mind. That blows my mind, but we can. I mean, we can't talk him into doing anything evil, but he will listen. Like he kind of respects our minds and stuff. Um, I know sometimes he thinks we're silly, but yeah. So anyway, so that's the meaning of life. The meaning of life is to have a relationship with God, and through that relationship with God, you live your life. It becomes the basis for how you live your life because God tells you what to do. He tells you how. And he doesn't tell you how because I say so, and this is what I want you to do because I'm God and you have to listen to me. He says it because he knows that this is going to give you less pain, less suffering, and the results that not only you want, but the results that's going to help you as well as those around you. That's the formula. Even philosophers are trying to come up with the life based on that formula. Are you happy? How much does this reduce your pain and your suffering? Does it help you? Does it help other people? God already laid the groundwork. Like I tell people all the time that there is so much wisdom in the Bible that even if you don't believe in it, you can't deny the wisdom. You have a history of philosophers who are constantly trying to come up with these formulas on how to live life. Some of them, their formulas led them to believe in God. Some people was like, they're stupid, there's no God, which I don't know how you come up with the idea that there's no God. I think that's crazy because life is too not only specific and complicated, but designed. Like things are designed to coexist and work together. That is not by accident. Our whole human body is designed to coexist and work together. There is something that created it, even if it is not the Christian God. So it's for me, for you to say that there's no God, I can see you believing in a different God, but to say there's no God, I think you're lacking in brain functioning. Like honestly, this is my opinion. Because there's something created all of this. Grass is not green for no reason. I don't want to go all into that, but all of this stuff is not. I mean, and people say, "Oh, how can there be a God?" Blah 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 blah. We are living on a spinning rock in the middle of a place that's so black we can't see past it. Like life is already weird, so it's not like believing in God just takes it to another level. It gives some explanation. How in the world did we get on a rock that's spinning, and we have this intellectual capacity to question things? Who God, who is this build stuff? Like look at from the beginning of time and look at society now. Like look at everything we've done. This stuff is not by accident. It's not just here by chance. And then something I always say is even if you can explain everything scientifically, which you can't, but if you can explain emotions. You cannot explain consciousness. Doctors, philosophers, whatever, they have not been able to explain the origin of that, because if anything, we should be like plants and trees. We should not be conscious, talking, thinking, feeling, loving human beings. We should be something else. So anyway, I kind of went on a little tangent there. Um, so I'm trying to figure where I was. So we were created for a relationship with God. Anything that we put in the place of that is us being off track. And unfortunately, I was saying how much wisdom there is in the Bible. There's a lot of stuff in the Bible that is constantly being revealed to be relevant even today. So I'll give you an example. When God in the Old Testament was telling people, wash your hands, do all these rituals, they didn't know about germs back then. Now everybody washes their hands. This is something God started when he was telling Jews all these cleaning rituals when it comes to their food. He said, don't eat meat with blood in it. Now, at the time, you might be like, oh, he's just giving us a bunch of rules, blah, blah, blah. We don't have time to stop and cook the meat. We just need to eat. But now we know there's diseases in the blood. It can get you sick. It can kill you. So it's so much stuff like that in the Bible that is just undeniable. And science has revealed that the stuff is legitimate. The Bible says, be renewed, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Now we know this is mental health. Like, mental health was not a thing, but now it's a thing, and now we see. So the Bible said, think on things that are good. Is that not the basis of a lot of mental health stuff? So anyway, there's so much wisdom in the Bible that it's undeniable to me to say that God does not exist and Christian God is not the correct God. But and I know some people feel like, the Christian God came from slavery and the white people, stuff like that. And I will just tell you this. I did a podcast about that a couple of years ago. Not a podcast. I did a vlog post, a video vlog post about the black people who say that God is not real because of slavery. I would urge you to do your research, because don't let people being evil make you miss out on your creator, because they're not worth it. They're really not. And as long as you seek the truth and you have the truth in your heart and mind to seek it outside of what this world presents to you, you will find it. Whatever you're searching for with all your heart, you will find it. And the Bible even says, if you look for me and you search for me with all your heart, you will find me. So don't let those people make you miss God, because there's no do-overs once life is over. So do your research, figure it out. White people did not create Christianity. They did not create Christianity by a long shot. Christianity is an extension of Jewish culture, Jewish religion. So don't attribute white people as the creators of Christianity, and they didn't even create Christianity. Did they change some things and use it to be evil? Absolutely. But that doesn't mean it's not genuine, that it didn't come from the right place. But so anyway, just think a little bit deeper than that. Go a little bit deeper than that. Do your research. Because if you're wrong, the cost is very high. So at least do enough research to where you feel like, okay, I'm willing to pay the cost if I find out, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, that's it. I'm about ready to wrap up here. So I just want to talk about the meaning of life, and urge you to kind of examine what you think the meaning of life is. Build your relationship with God, and he will tell you what the meaning of how to navigate your life. The meaning of life is relationship with him, and then through that relationship, he will tell you how to navigate life on the very same basis that a lot of philosophers try to come up with about how we should live life. But yeah, God lays it out. He tells you how to take care of your kids. He tells you how to stay married. He tells you how to function in society. I mean, everything is in there. Not everything, but there's enough basis in there for you to apply to almost everything. And then once you get to the place where you get to these specific situations where the Bible doesn't cover, we have the Holy Spirit to help continue to teach us and guide us and help us to get to where we need to be. So God is rooting for all of us. He put us here for relationship. It came with some clauses that we needed free will and all that, but he's rooting for us and trying to help us and support us to get to the place where we can actually have an untainted relationship with him for eternity that's not rooted in our limited understanding of stuff. So once we get to the other side of life and we're with him for eternity, that relationship will now come full grown, it will blossom, and then we can be with God for eternity without any suffering, without any crying. Like, oh my goodness, everybody who does not want that? Like, who doesn't want that? You have to be crazy or sadistic or whatever if you don't. So anyway, so yeah, so that's it about the meaning of life. I hope you guys got something out of this. Again, send me your questions, comments, things like that. Yeah, and tune in next Friday at 12:30. I will post my new topic on Monday. In case you want to tune in. So thank you so much, you guys. Be blessed. Have a good day. Bye.